What's up, Scott?
Hey, what's up, Andrew?
Not much. How are you?
Pretty good. Got a decent packed house today, huh? In this chat. Can you guys all see my screen?
Ken.
Yes.
Cool. Well, again, thanks for waiting. My name is Scott Sepkowicz. I'm an agent with Venture Philly here at Keller Williams. I am just going into my 4th year now with the brokerage. Let me go to the next slide, actually. So I'm from Philly my whole life. I have my career path on this slide, kind of just to show you guys that I wasn't doing anything related to real estate when I started. I didn't have any connections. I didn't have any family, in the business. It was a clean slate. I was a musician, so it was completely different, obviously. And I kind of stumbled upon the industry by accident because I had a friend who was in the business. She was telling me about her lifestyle. It seemed, it intrigued me enough to do a free sample trial of the real estate courses, and kind of snowballed from there. Here I am today. My first year, I closed 11 transactions, just under $4 million in volume, and I capped with the brokerage as well. And now, in addition to being an agent, I also run the mentorship program for my team, which is, again, Venture Philly, and I teach this class. So that's me. There's 2 key things in your first year, in my opinion, that are super important for your success. So number 1 is going to be education. And number 2 is going to be establishing yourself as an agent to your sphere, like putting yourself out there and, like I said, establishing yourself so people know when they think of you, they know that you're in real estate. On that first point, first year is going to be about learning, not as much about money. Of course, we all have livelihood. We all need to pay the bills. But you want to err on the side of education, in my opinion, not just like making a quick buck, because you want to plant the seeds early. So you actually know what you're doing and that you're a good agent, because that's what's going to make you thrive in the long run, right? Don't be afraid to screw up. Don't be discouraged if you do. Everyone has stories about, mistakes they've made. There's so many, each transaction is unique. There's so many ways things can go wrong. Not to scare you guys, but you learn from each one, and it's bound to happen. It's okay. You're not gonna, go to prison unless you do something really, really messed up. But let's not do that. So like I can tell you, my first major screw up was, and this is something that you guys should all learn from and not do, was my first year. I went about 11 and a half months before a major mistake, almost a full year. And the mistake was trying to make a long story short. When you're doing a transaction, you're representing a buyer. Usually the buyer gets a inspection report. They do an inspection and get a report. Now, if they're getting a loan from a mortgage company, you never want the mortgage company to know about any repairs that are needed or any defects in the property. Because what happens is they basically will mandate that every single thing gets addressed and fixed, or else the loan's not approved. And a typical inspection report is going to have like 20, 30, sometimes 40, 50 items on it. And most of them are little and insignificant. But if they're requiring all those things to be fixed, it's really going to ruin the deal. It's such a pain in the ass. The seller's not going to do it. So what I did was, I had a buyer using an FHA loan, and the lender was required to see the termite inspection report, which is separate. We got a termite report as well, which you typically will do with any house if it has wood, which is most houses. And the termite inspection is fine for them to see. But what I did out of convenience was, the way this particular inspection report was given to me was, the termite report was on the same report as the regular inspection report. It was on the same PDF file. So out of convenience, I just sent the whole thing and said, hey, here, it's on the last page of this document, And then the lender emails me back and says, man, I really wish you didn't just send me this, because now we have to require all of these things to be addressed. And it was like 50 things, and kind of ruined the deal. But fortunately, I knew another lender that was able to save it, and we switched lenders mid-deal. And fortunately, they fixed the issue, and my buyers were able to go through with it. But it was almost disastrous. So make sure you never let the lender see the inspection report or know about any repairs that are needed. Always keep that between buyer and seller, especially if you're negotiating. Because when you're in the inspection period, you'll learn this as you learn more about the agreement of sale. But during the inspection period, you typically will renegotiate if something comes up, and you can ask for either credits in the form of seller assist, like just money that the buyer will get toward these things after closing, or for the seller to do the repairs themselves. And what you do is you sign an addendum. It's like a separate, it's called a change in terms addendum that says, seller will fix blah, 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 blah. If you do that, just make sure that you don't send it to the lender. Long story short. So anyway, mistakes happen. Just pivot and learn from them. Don't let it bog you down. Don't be too afraid to do your job because you're afraid of making a big mistake. We all have E&O insurance too if it comes to that. So dive in. Don't be a secret agent, as we say at KW. In my opinion, if you wait for the right time, it's just fear, anxiety in the back of your head. It's you want people to know what you're doing. You want to put yourself out there because you're not going to get business otherwise. Don't be ashamed. Don't be nervous that you're new and don't know what you're talking about. I think a lot of people are scared of having those conversations, so they don't put themselves out there because they feel like they're going to sound like a moron. But you already know more than the general public, believe it or not. Like most, you're more of an expert than they are, even at square one, just for doing real estate courses. So put yourself out there. If you don't know the answer to something, you can always find out. You can always, we have 500 agents here that you can go to help with any questions. So don't be a secret agent. Put yourself out there. Ask a ton of questions as well. I was notorious for this. I always asked a ton of questions, but that's how you learn. Don't be afraid. There's I think it's, Andrew probably knows, but I think it's like 500 agents at the brokerage roughly. All have something that they can contribute and teach. Mentorship is a huge thing your first year. It's kind of a vague term that we all talk about, but like, what is it? So there's two main courses I would say for mentorship at KW. One is to join a team, and the other is the pro coaching program. On the first point, joining a team, what that does is it's helpful, especially in the beginning, because you're not really going to have any expenses. The team is pretty much going to cover all of those expenses, which is really helpful, when you're not making income in the beginning. You're pretty much not going to pay for business cards. You're not going to pay for, listing signs and open house signs, and some marketing, is going to be covered. So, and to account for that, they take a little extra out of your commission, but you're not paying it up front, so it's a little easier to not have those expenses. Another thing, so aside from that, you're, depending on what team you join, all those team members are going to be your mentors, and they're going to be helping you. So I think we used to have like an event where I don't know if we still do it, and Andrew can probably confirm if we do or not. It used to be called Dolphin Tank. It was kind of like a less intense Shark Tank, where it was kind of like a job fair, but for teams, where you can learn and see like if it's a good fit or not, like what the culture's like, what they tend to focus on. But even aside from that, just reach out to Andrew, and he's kind of like the matchmaker for teams. He's like the Cupid of teams, so he can set you up with someone that he thinks would make sense with your personality and such, right? So I've been on a team since I started. That's all I really know. So pro coaching wasn't a thing when I started, so I can't speak too much to it, but I know that they're seeing a lot of success. And what that is, it's more for solo agents, and it's basically someone will hold your hand through like, your prospecting and lead generation, and your first year's worth of deals, actually, I believe. So that's something also that Andrew could probably talk to you about as well, if you're interested. So both of those things I think are worth exploring for sure. Take as many KW classes as you can, including this one, of course. Some really good ones are the agreement of sale class with Vicky Carey. That's a 3-part course because the agreement of sale is like crazy complicated, and it's also your bread and butter. Even when you're not if you're not watching the class, which you can watch all these classes on our YouTube page, by the way, they're all recorded, including this one. You should just be studying the agreement of sale, just like read through it a few times until you truly understand what it's saying, what it is, because it's gonna help you to be creative and to also know what you're talking about with clients. So study the agreement of sale for sure. Some other great classes are the open house class. There's another one on the mechanics of the home, so you can actually learn about how houses work a little bit and not sound like a complete moron like I did when I started. Like I couldn't even tell the difference between hot water heater and a furnace, which sounds stupid now in retrospect, but a lot of people don't know. So it's good to have a general idea of how things work when you're showing houses and stuff. There's a bunch of classes. I mean, there's probably at least one every day, and if some days there's like 2 or 3. So there's always opportunities to learn that way. Some good books that I have here, some recommendations. There's a million of them. These are just 3 that I happen to pick out. First one, if you haven't heard already, the MREA book written by Gary Keller, who, Gary Keller, Keller Williams, he founded the company. MREA is just a millionaire real estate agent. And it's basically it's kind of like the Bible of our brokerage. It's kind of just saying, it's all the models that KW has found to be used by the most successful agents. And so it'll kind of get you in the mindset of what you should be doing, how to be successful, how to think of yourself as a business owner in this business. Second book here, the book on rental property investing, very straightforward title. It's an awesome book on the investment side of things. It's by Brandon Turner of Bigger Pockets, which is the biggest real estate investment forum online. You've probably come across it at some point. But the book is super easy to digest for beginners and experienced investors. I think you have something to learn no matter what. Very easy to read. And even if you don't plan on working with investors too much, I think it's important to know how that side of things works, because with every real estate transaction, there's some investment element in it, right? Whether you're buying or selling, there's some elements of investing either way. And it's good to be able to talk about that with your clients. So I think it's important to get how that stuff works too. Third book here is not real estate specific, but more just like general self-development, which is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. You probably heard of it. It sounds like a super sleazy book, but that's because it was written in like 1915 or something, and that's just kind of the style of how they marketed their stuff back then. But it's actually, it's not like a scumbag book. It's actually really good, and kind of teaches you how to be genuine, more self-aware, and just connect with people, like I said, genuinely, instead, not being phony. And I just find it great. It's one of my favorite books. It's every chapter is like 1 or 2 pages too. And as Andrew pointed out in the chat, there is a book club that we're starting at the brokerage. On November 3rd is the first meeting, and Limitless is the first book. And I have not read that book, so I can't tell you anything about it. But I don't know if Andrew, did you want to say something about the book club?
Yeah, November 3rd. Scott, we're in the same boat. I have not finished it either. So all of us have plenty of time. November 3rd. It's going to be at 8:30 in the morning at Fishtown. Coffee, breakfast, talk about a good book. Can't beat it.
There you go. In addition to books, there's a ton of podcasts. If you listen to podcasts, I don't really consume podcasts for whatever reason, and I wish I could think of the title of some good ones for you guys, but that's something you could probably find pretty easily. Ton of resources, even if you just YouTube and Google stuff. There's a guy on YouTube that I remember I used to like a lot called it's like Kevin something. I know that's not super helpful, but you'll find him. He has so many videos with like millions of views. It's more for it's videos on kind of like scripts and how to handle things and what to say, how to handle objections in real estate. He always has he phrases things very well. And on that note, with scripts, there's a good response for every situation, but you don't want to sound like you're reading a script or have a script memorized when you're saying these things, right? The idea behind a script is to internalize the idea behind the script and not memorize it so that you're just like rehearsing it, right? So with whatever the script you're looking at there's some idea behind it. There's some valid idea of why it's, a good response to a certain situation. Understand that deeply, like in your brain, so that you can put it into your own words if that situation comes up. You never want to sound like you're just, reading a script, because we all can recognize it when other people are doing it. It just sounds like bullshit. So internalize it so that you can, individualize it.
Hey, Scott, one thing. If anybody needs a copy of the MREA, send me an email, send me a message. I'll make sure you get it. There's a lot of great resources on YouTube breaking down the MREA. I actually just did an economic model with one of our agents, what she wanted her net income to be for 2022. And then we reverse engineered, the daily activities that she needs to do to hit that number. And we boiled it down to 3 real estate conversations per day. Scripting, I hated it first. It was the most uncomfortable thing in the world until I actually realized I'm not supposed to actually read the script. It was just internalize the theory behind it. So anytime I'm out and about networking, meeting new clients, I always know what to say. So now I love script practice. I'm actually in the script competition, and I went into it a little bit overconfident this morning. It may have embarrassed myself, but it was better to be overconfident than underconfident, I guess is the term.
Yeah, and it's great to do script practice with like another team member or another agent, where you can just riff off of each other and practice like handling objections and kind of get your like awkwardness out of the way now, so that when it comes up in real life, you kind of have a head start.
It's so awkward at first, but it's great though. Like you're growing as an agent.
For sure. Next slide here is about passion. I think it's super important to look like you enjoy real estate and look like you enjoy what you do. I mean, if you think about it, if you're looking to sell your home or buy a house and you're choosing between 2 agents, right? One agent is super pumped up. They have a lot of energy. They seem like they're having fun all the time. They really love real estate. It's very obvious that they love real estate. Whereas the other agent just kind of seems like they're going through the motions. They're just there to collect a paycheck. Like, you're probably going to go with the first guy, right? Or girl. People, I think, want to work with people that they like and that seem passionate. I personally am pretty passionate about the city of Philadelphia, luckily, so it's kind of easy for me. I'm born and raised here. I always, love learning about the city, the history and such. So I think that it's important whether I don't know, where you guys are anticipating focusing on. I'm just gonna, for the sake of example, assume it's Philadelphia. And if it is Philadelphia, like, I think you should learn about the city, because in a way you're kind of like a concierge for the city or wherever you're selling, right? So like, try to stay on top of the pulse of the city, like what's going on, like what are some new developments happening, any new restaurants, bars popping up, any events in town. Like, try to always stay on top of what's going on, because it's going to make you sound more knowledgeable when you're talking to leads and to clients. You can subscribe to newsletters that give you this kind of stuff. There's one called Plan Philly that will give you it's a newsletter that goes to your email where you could just see like different things that are happening as they're announced in the city. There's one called Hidden City Philadelphia, which is good. There's a few of them. There's a few ways to stay on top of that stuff. Try to learn about the history of Philly too, and like even the history of like different architectural styles, if you're into that, or like row homes. And I find that clients always appreciate when especially if they're like out of state or not from the city, when I can we see something on the street and I can point out like a stupid little fun fact or something about it. Just look like you're having fun and enjoy what you're doing. You want to be authentic in this industry. So we have I think most people would agree, we have a reputation. We're like one rung above used car salesmen in most people's eyes. So the way to get around that and to get some respect is just to be authentic and don't be salesy, in my opinion. Be yourself. I like to say, be hungry, but not thirsty. What I mean by that is, be hungry in the sense that you want to have drive and be motivated to work hard for your clients and show that, but you don't want to be thirsty in the sense that you don't want to come across as desperate, like you really need $1, people can pick up on that. So don't be stereotypical or robotic salesperson. Instead, be human, right? We kind of just talked about that with scripts and such. Don't BS people, don't pressure people. Show them, be willing to move at other people's pace, respect their timeline. If they're not ready now, that's okay. Like, don't try to change that necessarily. Just respect it and be willing to move at their pace. They'll, if you respect that, they'll respect that about you. And, down the line, they'll remember that and hopefully work with you later on. Right. Be honest, of course, goes hand in hand. You don't, I shouldn't have to explain that. You don't want to lie. Show interesting things, tell interesting stories on social media. Try not to be boring on social media, just posting facts like, hey, this house is for sale. It has 3 beds, 2 baths. Like, show cool stuff. Like, there's a reason HGTV is one of the most watched stations on TV, because people like real estate. They like looking at houses and stuff. So show the cool stuff. Like, show, like, if you're at showings or in an open house, show like the really awesome roof deck view, or like, even if it's like not cool but just weird, like post like a weird thing you see in a house. Even just keep it interesting. You don't want to seem like you're just like like you're just Zillow posting listings. Next slide here is regarding my best lead sources. And this is, for me personally, emphasis on that because everyone's different. I have a feeling it's going to be similar for most of you, because usually it is. Those 2 things are open houses and social media. So with open houses, there's a whole class on this, so I don't want to get too deep into it, but I will give some tips here. So I would say when I first started, I tried to host at least 2 per weekend to start. So I was doing one Saturday, one Sunday, for a month or 2, just to get my database going. Some people are doing 4 per weekend. They'll do a morning and an afternoon, Saturday and Sunday. So they do 8 in a month, which is even better. The reason they're so great is almost every single person coming to the open house is looking to buy a home. Or if they're a newsy neighbor, they're a potential seller, they're interested in the value of their home. So you can segue and have conversations into, creating leads in your pipeline that way. So with a typical open house, I'll try to keep this short. You want to ask smart questions to learn about their goals so that you can later follow up and try to, you're a problem solver. Like, if they're looking for a 3-bedroom house with a nice backyard, you're going to help them solve that problem and by finding them something, right? So typically someone will walk in, you'll greet them and you'll have them sign in, because you want to capture, their name and email and their phone. Those are the 3, like, at minimum. I don't ask for anything else. Have them sign in. There's different, things you can use to sign in. I think Command has something. My team uses something else, but it can even just be pen and paper. And just start, have small talk that isn't boring, basically. Try to learn a little bit more. So when someone walks in, I'll usually ask, hey, how did you hear about the open house today? And the reason I ask that is to kind of gauge whether or not they have an agent. So if they have an agent, they'll usually say, my agent sent me this or something like that. If they don't, they'll just say, oh, we saw it on Zillow, we saw it on Redfin, we were just walking by. And then I'll ask, are you from the area? And if it's a yes, great. Is the idea to stay here? Are you renting currently? Like, maybe they're renting and they want to buy in the same area. If the answer is no, they're not from here. Oh, where are you from? They tell me, and is the idea, are you looking to move into this neighborhood, right? And you kind of just go from there. Usually what I want to learn from a conversation with someone is where are they looking to buy? So like neighborhoods and stuff. What are they looking to buy? So how many beds, baths, Do they need a parking spot? Anything else that might be relevant? Usually you just need to know beds, baths, and maybe like if they need parking at minimum. And I want to know, when are they looking to buy? So what's their timeline? If they're renting and their lease isn't up until, next June or something, now would be a little bit early to put an offer in unless they're willing to pay rent and a mortgage. Which, by the way, if someone does tell you that they're renting and their leases expire, their lease expires a certain date, I'd say 3 to 4 months prior to the lease expiration is probably a good time to start the house hunt and start looking. So I want to know, what their timeline is like, if they found a house they like tomorrow, would they put an offer in, right? And 4, I want to know how much house they can afford, if that makes sense. So I want to know their budget. Could be a little bit trickier to find that out. One way you can ask is to ask if they're already pre-approved or not. If they are pre-approved, that's great. They're like a pretty serious buyer. And if they're not, it's an excuse for you to, connect them with a lender and have an additional follow-up after the open house so that they can get that process started. And in case you're not familiar with it, with pre-approvals, I'll go over it real quick. You want a pre-approval before you put an offer in on the house. It's basically required. It's to show that, you're not just like bullshitting, that, you're not just putting an offer in on $1 million home and just saying like, yeah, I can afford it. Like, you got to show proof. And that's what the pre-approval does. So it gets that ammunition ready for when you find the house that you want to put an offer in, you have that ready. Whereas if you don't, it's still a seller's market. There's a lot of competition these days. So there's a chance that there's other offers on the house that they like, and you don't want to be waiting for a pre-approval to come in while other people are putting offers in, because you're gonna miss out. So, and not only that, but the pre-approval will give people clarity on their actual budget, because it'll tell you the actual amount that you would be approved for. And it'll give you, also, how much total cash you would need to buy a house at that price range, what your monthly payment would be. It just gives you more clarity. So it's a great excuse to follow up with an open house lead. If aside from that, the majority of your follow-ups with open house leads, which by the way should be as soon as possible, and I'll go over that in a second, but the majority of your follow-ups are going to be sending them new listings, basically. So usually your leads are going to be buyer leads, and you're going to learn through conversation about what they want to buy, what they're looking for. And as those, initially you might round up a group of listings on the MLS and send it to them, and, see if they want to tour any, and then keep that as a saved search. So that you get alerts every time a new listing comes up. And if it does, you follow up with them and say, hey, this was just listed. Do you want to tour it? Right. So you want to follow up ASAP. During the open house or directly after the open house is ideal. You got to strike while the iron's hot. One thing that's pretty assertive and has worked really well, and I think is a great strategy, is to, let's say you just met a great lead. They're looking for a certain type of house. They leave, and then no one else is currently at the open house. Find some stuff that could work for them, like while you're waiting while no one else is there. Shoot them a quick text, be like, hey, like this is available nearby. It has that backyard, you're looking for. I'm here until 2 p.m., but I'm free afterwards. If you're around, do you want me to set up a tour? I could show it to you, and just try to, swing it into a showing right then and there. I've had two agents, two of the most recent agents that I mentor on my team, their first offer that they submitted was this method, where they just set up a showing right off the bat, like with a lead that came into an open house. And it was actually my very first settlement that came from someone that was in an open house, not that I knew already from my sphere. It was this exact method. So I was hosting an open house in Old City. It was an older couple that came in. They really liked the place, but they were really looking for a place with a fireplace. And I knew that there was a place down the block that had a fireplace, which, by the way, I'll get into this in a second, but you do want to research other competition so that you can do this. So I did my research, and I knew there was another place down the block that had a fireplace. And I said, hey, I'm here till 2 p.m. If you're still around, I could show you this place. when I'm done. And they kind of just looked at each other and were like, yeah, okay. And I showed it to them. They liked it. We put an offer, and that's where they currently live. So, you know, you want to strike while the iron's hot and be assertive like that. So going back to what I was saying before, a good idea before the open house that you host is not just to learn about the house itself, like have all the specs memorized, like, you know, square footage, taxes, and such, but research the nearby active competition of the houses. Reason being is, besides what I just said about how you can segue into setting up showings, you want to sound knowledgeable about the, you know, the market, like, you know, all the listings that are there. And so what happens is usually you'll ask for, when they're done looking at the house that you're hosting, they'll give you feedback. They'll tell you what they like, what they didn't like. And you can segue that into your knowledge of what you researched. Like, you know, for example, in my example, I knew these people wanted a fireplace. They told me that, and I did my research and knew there was a place with a fireplace down the block. And I turned that into a showing appointment. So do your research on the active competition. You don't have to memorize every single little spec. Just know that they exist and like some key features and such. If you don't follow up during the open house itself, you want to follow up directly after, like right when I get home is when I'm following up. And usually that's just going to be sending houses from the MLS that I think might fit the bill for them. I don't want to get too into it, but, you know, there's a way where you can set up an auto email that goes out to clients through the Bright MLS, so that when a new listing comes up, they'll receive it. And you want to do concierge mode when you do that. It's called concierge mode. All that means is you approve or reject the listings as they pop up, as opposed to automatically going to them, so that they, you know, I prefer doing it that way, so that, you know, I know that they're getting stuff that actually makes sense for them, and not, you know, if it's something that doesn't have pictures or it just looks like a piece of crap, that they're not getting it. So I like to be in control of that. And I usually will try to text them as well with, you know, any new listings. We'll get into this later in this class, but texting gets a lot more responses. And if for some reason you feel like you can't follow up immediately afterwards with like something of value, like houses or something, shoot them a quick text and be like, hey, great meeting you. I'm going to take a look later today and send you some places that you might want to tour. Stay tuned. You know, just give them a heads up, and usually they'll be like, okay, great, thanks. And it sets, as soon as they reply to you once, it's more likely that they'll reply to you in the future instead of just ignore you. So anyway, taking a few steps back again, when you're at the open house, they'll come in, they'll sign in. You kind of make the small talk that we were discussing earlier, but let them go through the house, don't follow them. And then when you reconvene, you ask for their feedback. And that's where you kind of try to have the core of your conversation. And before they leave, you want to have some kind of call to action. So you want to have some kind of message that conveys you're gonna follow up again later with them. So it leaves the conversation open to a follow-up. So what that typically is you'll say, hey, like, if I come across anything that I think might, you know, fit the bill for you guys, I have your email address. Do you mind if I send it over? Usually they say, yeah. Or you could say, you know, if you want, I can make an introduction to lenders so you can start the pre-approval process. It's free, doesn't cost you anything, and it's, you know, it'll really help you take the next step in your house hunt. Usually it's going to be the former, though, when you're just saying, you know, I'll send you stuff if I come across anything. Sometimes you can offer to, you know, if I come across anything that's like off market or coming soon, I'll send it your way. You can say too, because you can just ask around people, you know, if they have any listings that are coming up that fit the bill for these guys. We have a Facebook page, which you should all be on automatically when you sign up with us. If not, talk to Andrew, but it's KW Philadelphia. And you can literally just post there and say, hey, does anyone have any 3-bedroom houses under 500K in Fishtown coming up? And, you know, you might get some responses. So, you know, you're telling the truth when you can say, hey, you know, I might know of some off-market stuff that I could send your way. So there's different things to do. The moral of the story is to you know, end the conversation by, you know, assuming you're going to follow up again with them. Like, make it clear that there's going to be some kind of follow up, if that makes sense. When you're picking an open house to do, this is my last tip on this. Ideally, I find that it's best to pick something that's new that people haven't already seen for, you know, that hasn't been on the market for a long time. With a really walkable street or neighborhood where you're always going to get foot traffic. Fishtown tends to be really good for this, as does like Fairmount, Queen Village. And a sweet spot in price range is like 400 to 800K, I'd say. That's where you really get a lot of good leads. I think under 400K, it tends to be a little tougher to work through deals. And then over 800K, you tend to have people that already like have agents, I find. But it's not to say it's a waste of time at all. One of my mentees, one of his first open houses, it was at a $1.2 million open house, and he ended up getting a lead from it. And one of his first deals was a $1.1 million closing, which he actually set up in the method I described earlier, where he set up a showing right after the open house was done, because he did his research. So you never know. And there is another Facebook group that, if you're not on, talk to Andrew about, where it's KW open house opportunities, where you can say, hey, I'm looking to host an open house, or vice versa. People will say, I want someone to host an open house at a certain property. And it's kind of like it's like a matchmaker for that kind of thing. Aside from that, if you're on a team, it's a little easier to host open houses because they usually let the agents just host them, you know, they're on their listings. Worst case scenario, you can just find a listing that you like on the MLS and reach out to the agent and ask if they want someone to host an open house on it. And, you know, you'll pay for like signs and stuff, but if you get one lead out of it, it's worth it. So take the open house class that KW offers, because it'll go in more detail than I have. And I feel like I'm rambling a lot now about that. So open houses, long story short, are going to be huge bread and butter your first year. Now on to the second point is social media. Try to post every day, even if it's just stories. I'm usually posting Instagram stories. Instagram is where you're going to get most of your engagement. Facebook probably second. But you never know. Sometimes I'll post things on Snapchat even, and I've gotten leads from that. An agent on my team does TikTok a lot, and she's gotten leads from TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. You know, the goal with social media is to stay top of mind, not to sell things to people. So you want to keep reminding people indirectly that you're in real estate and that you're an agent, so that, you know, maybe they're not, you know, looking to buy or sell anything right now, but maybe a year, 2 years from now they remember, you know, when they think real estate, you want them to think you. And so you want them to reach out to you when they have, you know, a real estate need. And that's the goal with social media. Mix it with personal non-real estate things too. I'm in the camp that I think that you should put everything on your personal page. I don't have a separate real estate page. I think your sphere is already on your personal page. Don't be embarrassed of posting about your business. Keep it on your personal page, because it is personal. You're a business owner now, right? And this is your passion, right? So there's nothing to be ashamed of. You know, just mix it with personal things too. You know, your sphere is, like I said, is already on your personal page. Not everyone's going to follow your new page. You're going to have less people. Your posts are going to, you know, you're going to have less impressions from your posts because of that. So I think the ratio that's recommended that I saw somewhere is like 3 personal posts for every 1 real estate related post. Just a rule of thumb. You don't have to follow it, of course. But yeah, just be authentic on there. Just look like you're having fun, like we talked about earlier. Stay top of mind and show interesting things. That's how you really help establish yourself to your sphere as a real estate agent, so they know what you do. I get messages now all the time from people I haven't spoken to since like middle school saying, hey, I'm looking to buy a house, or like my mom's looking to sell her house. Like, and they reach out to me on like Facebook or Instagram. Because they know what I do, because I put myself out there, and, you know, I'm not a secret agent. They know that I'm a realtor, and post stuff like anytime you're doing something related to the business, try to post it. If you're hosting an open house, post about it before you host it. Like a few days up, so, announce that you're hosting one. On the day of, post that you're there now and post like pictures and videos. If you're on showings, post about it. If you're putting an offer in, definitely post about it. If you have a settlement, definitely post about it. It looks like you want to look like you're doing business. And even in the beginning, before you have any leads, and you don't have a lot of business to do, you can set up showings on houses as just an agent preview, it's called. So we all use an app called Showing Time. If you don't have it yet, download it. That's what you're going to use to book showings. On the app, you can book a showing for any property, and you can say there's a drop-down menu. Instead of like a buyer showing, you can change it to an agent preview, which means that you're just going to see it for yourself as an agent. So you can do that without any clients, any leads, and get social media content. You can take pictures or videos, like try to make it like a really interesting house. Like maybe it's a luxury property or something. You get free content that way, and you learn about the market, and you get used to showing houses as well, and what to expect when you're in different neighborhoods. One thing that I see some people do is maybe one day they'll do 5 agent previews, 10 agent previews or more in a certain neighborhood. So they learn about, they'll learn about the neighborhood first of all, just like walking around, like how it feels, different street boundaries and how the market kind of changes. They'll learn about, different inventory, so they can actually talk to clients like, hey, this is property, I showed this property last week that has blah, blah, blah. And, you get free social media content. If you do 5 a day, even 3 a day in like a different neighborhood every day, like that's going to add up, and that's a lot of content to post. Eventually you'll be an expert on the city, right? So that's an easy way to get social media content right there. I think that's the gist. If I'm forgetting anything, I'll go back to that. But yeah, the goal is to just stay top of mind, show interesting things. By the way, if anyone has any questions or anything as I'm doing this, I know I'm talking a lot, my throat's getting real dry. Feel free to call out or post in the chat as well. It's not, it's not a monologue. So those were my best lead sources. Your best lead sources could be that, but I don't know. You got to try everything and find out. The main idea is to network. The more people you know, the more real estate conversations you're going to have, and the bigger your database is going to be, and the more business you're going to do. The most successful agents tend to be the ones that know the most people, and are well connected. So network in any way you can. Be a little bit more social than you're used to being. It can really pay off. Some people do door knocking. I think it's really weird to do that now with COVID, but maybe in the future. And what they'll do is they'll knock on doors and introduce themselves as an agent, maybe give them some market stats. Some people will cold call. I never cold call personally, but some people are really successful with it. They'll call expired listings. So listings that, expired, no one bought them, and they'll try to figure out what they think went wrong, and maybe they can help. Or some people will call homes that are for sale by the owner and not with an agent, and try to, convince them to work with them essentially. I think it's, I find it very tough these days to convert people like that. I find my time is better spent elsewhere with lead gen, like just like posting on social media in general. But some people are super successful with it. Join a neighborhood association. I think it's a great way to meet people that are really involved in the community. They tend to be really good connections, and tend to know what's going on in the neighborhood, like who's moving where, like, a lot of gossip. But it's good for you if you're connected with them. And it's usually pretty cheap. Like mine was like $20 for the year to join, so it's nothing crazy. Join clubs, join sports teams. There's online forums. Like I've gotten leads from Reddit before. There's people on my team that get leads like out the wazoo from online dating apps. Like they'll go on like Tinder and Hinge, and they'll just literally just look to lead gen. Like they'll have like a real estate profile, and like they'll get people saying, hey, it's like weird that you post this. I'm actually like kind of been looking to buy a house. And literally that just happened to one of my mentees, one of the newer agents on my team. Her first deal is close to $600,000 triplex that she sold to someone that she met on Hinge, that she didn't go on a date with, literally just had a real estate conversation, and it worked out. So you never know. You got the more conversations you have, the better, right? Last big point here is what I call the art of the follow-up. To me, the follow-ups are arguably the most important thing to be consistent about. You want to use your CRM, which is your customer relationship management software. That's just like Command, KW Command, for example. My team uses something called Follow-Up Boss. It's just like your system that you use to keep track of all your leads. Always set up follow-up tasks, even if they're not interested, quote unquote. If they're an awful lead that curse you out, say, I'm not interested. Put a follow-up task for like a year from now. Just check in, see where they're at. It can't hurt, because if you don't, it's a no anyway. So you got to shoot your shot. You never know. Texting nowadays tends to get more responses than email, which is why I said I'll usually text listings in addition to doing the bright email listings I talked about earlier. I'll actually there's a way to get the URL for a property on the MLS and just paste it in like a text and say, hey, this was just listed. It has a fireplace like you're looking for. Like, do you want to see it? I'm free tomorrow after 2 p.m. or something. Whenever you follow up, and you always want to be direct. Don't say, you don't want to ask, let me know if you want to see it. Let me know if you ever want to see anything. You want to be direct and just ask them, say, hey, do you want to tour this? I'm free tomorrow, after 12 or something. Like, have a direct ask and like a direct time too, where you make it as easy as possible for them, where they don't even have to check their schedule and let you know when they're free. Like, offer up a couple times and they can just say, yeah, I am free that time, So if I send people a bunch of listings, I won't say, let me know if you ever want to see any. I'll say, which ones do you want to tour? I'm happy to set it up. Be a little more assertive than you may be used to. It'll pay off. This fly is driving me nuts. I'm not crazy, I promise. I'm trying to get a fly that's flying in my face. Anyway, don't be afraid to call as well. Texting nowadays, like I said, gets more responses, but calling is a little bit better than email. Most emails are getting ignored these days. I think it's like 90% of emails don't even get opened. But when you call someone, it's almost like a little alarming sometimes, and they'll like pick up. It's a little bit better than texting and then emailing. Come from contribution if possible. What I mean by that is try to give them something of value if you follow up. Maybe it's a new listing, or it's a home buyer's guide that you put together. Maybe it's news about a new development in the city. Usually for me, it's like a new listing that I'm sending to someone to ask if they want to tour it. Your main goal with buyer leads is to set up showing appointments, because that's what leads to offers. Like, your main goal, always try to set up a showing appointment with someone, right? There's a script for everything. We already talked about this, but still speak naturally, right? You want to internalize the ideas. And don't forget to ask for referrals. A lot of people forget, even if it's your current clients, they don't always know. Like, let them know, like, hey, if you know anyone else looking to buy or sell, like, please send them my way. Like, I'll take good care of them. Ask for referrals from an awful lead too. You get cursed out and they tell you, go F yourself. Ask them, you say, hey, that's great. If you ever know anyone else looking to buy or sell, let me know. Send them my way. Can't hurt. Always ask for referrals. Where was I? Go to the next slide here. Oh, so that reminds me. So on that note, a lot of people don't know, this is really important. A lot of people don't know how our industry works and how we make money. So there's a few things that I find it super important, especially on social media, to constantly remind people and point out over and over. One of those things is that you're a business owner, and your livelihood is you're all commission based. So your business is all referral and word of mouth based is the way I usually phrase it. People don't know that. They think that we're just like employees being given leads, and it doesn't matter if they work with us or not, we'll still make our check, our salary, a lot of people don't know. So you have to make it clear, like, hey, I appreciate any referrals is like the greatest compliment I can get. Thanks so much for supporting my business. I'm, in case you don't know, in case it's not clear, my business is all word of mouth based. It's all referral based. My livelihood depends on it. So I really appreciate it, So that's something to point out a little more eloquently than I just did. But another thing is I realize people don't know that, and maybe you guys don't know this yet, but if you're working with a buyer agent, it's free essentially for the buyer. It's free representation to have an agent when you're buying. There's no reason to not have an agent. We're paid by the seller side. We're paid by the listing agent. They split the commission in half with us. So a lot of people are wary to engage with you if they don't know that, because they think they have to pay you extra, and they just say, "Oh, I'll do it ourselves." But if they're a buyer lead, it's free. It's free representation. It's stupid to not have an agent. Remind people of that all the time. It's free. Another thing is, I find people don't know that you can show them any house on the market. It doesn't just have to be your or your brokerage's listings. You can show them any property on the market and represent them in a purchase on any of those properties. People don't realize that either. The question I get asked the most is like, do you have any listings that are blah, blah, blah? And it's always like, I can tell that they think it has to be my listings that I work on them with. They don't know. So you want to remind people of those things. Hopefully that makes sense. Slide here. Be human. I try to make it very obvious that I'm personally typing messages to people, and it's not like, a bot or automated. So I'll use lowercase letters where normally you use capital. I'll put emojis in there if appropriate. I'll send multiple messages in a row. And what I mean by that is, instead of one long wall of text, I might say, hey, like, this was just listed in Fishtown, has an awesome roof deck. I know you want it. It's in your budget too. And then another message I'll say, maybe like a minute later, I'm free tomorrow, anytime before 7 p.m. Do you want to tour it? And then maybe another text that just says, let me know, And I think that when you break it up like that, it seems more like a person's actually typing it out, and it's not just some automatic like BS. Just anything you can think of to be outside the box a little bit. Not that that's like super creative, what I just said, but just try to think outside the box sometimes, because your goal is to get responses too, to be helpful, but you also want to get responses. You're going to get ignored a lot in this industry. So you want to try your best to stand out that way and just seem like a real authentic human. Don't be afraid to be goofy and fun when appropriate either. You don't have to be like you don't have to have like a stick up your ass and just be super formal all the time. Be yourself, have fun with it. People will pick up on it and appreciate it. Second bullet point here is a stupid joke. I'm just saying, keep it short and sweet when you follow up with people. Don't have like a long ass email with all this info and fluff. Just get to the point. I try to keep it like 1 or 2 sentences if I can. It's not always possible, of course, but yeah, you want to get to the point. Try to ask only 1 question at max. I find if I ask 2 questions, I don't get answers. It's like too much for people, but people are busy. Just make their lives easy. Keep it short and sweet. Cut out all the fluff. You're going to see that your response rate is going to go up a lot more. And again, keep it direct. So be assertive. If it's a buyer lead, try to set up those tours. And I like calling them tours over showings because it sounds more fun, I think, psychologically. But, ask them, do you want to tour this? Or which ones do you want to tour? I just sent you 5. Which of these do you want to tour? I'll set them up for tomorrow, You will be rejected, ghosted, bitched out, blah, 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 a million times. It's normal. It's, you don't want to think of yourself as a salesperson, but we are at the end of the day. Don't take it personally. People are rejecting the opportunity and not you. I've had leads that I followed up with for over 2 years, close to almost 3 years, where I didn't get a single response, but I kept following up because remember, it's super important to keep a schedule of following up with people. Don't let people slip through the cracks. That's probably a huge point that I didn't really actually go over, but that's what I mean by the art of the follow-up. Aside from being creative with it, you want to be consistent with it and not let people fall through the cracks. Keep following up. I was going to say, I had people that didn't answer me for 2 years. All of a sudden I sent them a listing, and obviously the opportunity was right for them. So they actually responded to me and wanted to tour it. We went on a showing, ended up getting it under contract, and it was like a $700,000 property. So you always want to be consistent about that. Don't give up if you don't get an answer. But yeah, and if you're ignored, again, don't take it personally. It has nothing to do with you. They're rejecting the opportunity, not you. It's their way indirectly of telling you they're not ready yet, or like this is not right for them yet. And you want to be, if it's a hot lead, if it's someone that's like ready to buy, you want to be following up like every day in some cases, especially if you're seeing like new listings that you can send them every day. If it's like a colder lead, you know, you got to get a feel for it, but maybe weekly, monthly, yearly, you'll get a sense for that. You'll get a sense for that with practice on how often you should follow up with people. But, you know, the worst is when you let something slip through the cracks where they tell you, oh, we just bought a house last month. And, you know, you kind of like shoot yourself because you're like, damn, I should have followed up with them. You're also, something else to prepare yourself for. You're going to have close friends and family. At some point, they're going to buy a house without you or sell a house without you. Because, you know, some of them because they're assholes, but also most of the time because they just don't know how the industry works. And like I was saying before, you got to educate people, make sure you put out there as much as possible how it works, and that your business is referral based, that it's all word of mouth, and that, you know, you don't make money if people don't, if you don't do business. So your livelihood depends on referrals. And then always, of course, thank people for supporting your small business, right? So that's all I got. So we can open this up to quick Q&A. If you guys ever have any questions, feel free to email me, text me. You can follow me on Instagram. My handle's there if you want to see what kind of things I post, or just to connect. I have my social security number there if you want to steal my identity. Aside from that, just let me know any questions, anything I didn't go over that you're wondering, or anything that was confusing. Feel free to call out or type in the chat.
How was like your first open house experience? Like, were you really nervous? Like, were you ready for it, or were you like, just let's do it?
I was just, let's do it. Don't be nervous about it. You're really just, they're really fun, honestly. Like you're gonna have some anxiety, and I think it helps in the beginning if you can try to shadow someone first, so then you kind of know what to expect. But even if you don't, just dive in, and it doesn't matter if you fail miserably, because you're going to learn from it, and it's practice. It's not like your life depends on having a great first open house. So just go and have fun. Don't be nervous about it. All you're doing is having conversations with people, and you're meeting people. You know, you don't have to think of it like a job interview, like you're trying to impress people. Just like people are going to come in because they're curious, and you talk to them, and you try to make a connection, and set up the anticipation that you're going to follow up in the future with something, right? They end up being really fun. Like they're nothing to get nervous about. You just have good conversations. You feel good afterwards because you get social media content, and you hopefully get some good leads that you can follow up with. But yeah, there's I would just, as long as you're prepared, there's nothing to be nervous about. Just research the property, research some other competition, shadow someone if you can. It might help, but nah, you'll be good to go for sure. Usually people don't ask too many complicated questions, so you don't have to worry about like not knowing stuff in general. They might ask you, the only question I really get sometimes is like, how's the market? And you can just say, and this is true, like this is what you can tell people right now. It's a seller's market still, in the sense that inventory is low. It is softening a little bit, where there's a little bit more inventory coming up, but it's kind of a win-win for both sides right now, because although inventory is low, which brings prices up because it's like scarcity, there's a lot of buyers, because interest rates are still like historically low, and so it's really important to lock in a low interest rate. It's more important to do that than to try to time the market and buy at the right time, because you're locking in a low rate for 30 years in most cases. When, if you're renting, it just keeps going up and up and up historically over the years. So the market is kind of like and I'll say literally, like, I know it sounds like a super realtor thing to say, but it's really a win-win for both sides. And, I'll go into that explanation. For the most part, you're trying to be in command and ask the questions and learn a little bit more about these guys. Does that answer your question? Cool. What else? Anything else? See a lot of muted microphones, so I'm assuming no. If someone has a question, feel free to, you can email me privately or however you want to reach out. But aside from that, I hope you guys picked up some stuff from that. Hope you guys learned some things, and I wish you guys best of luck in your future endeavors and your new business. So other than that, have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.